The autumn rain fell gently on Windsor Castle as the two brothers stood in the dimly lit study. William adjusted his tie nervously while Harry stared out the window, his reflection showing a face marked by years of difficult decisions. Neither of them had expected this summons, especially not on such short notice. Their grandmother's private secretary, Edward Pemberton, entered the room carrying a sealed envelope. His usually composed face showed signs of strain. He had served the royal household for 40 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Your Highnesses," Pemberton began, his voice steady despite the weight of his task. "Her Majesty requested that this letter be delivered to you both together, and only when you were alone." William reached for the envelope, but Pemberton held it back slightly. "Before I hand this over, I must inform you that Her Majesty was very specific. What you are about to read must remain between you two. No advisors, no spouses, no one else." Harry turned from the window, his green eyes searching Pemberton's face. "When did she write this?" 3 weeks ago, sir. She was quite lucid and determined. She spent hours on it, rewriting it several times until she was satisfied." The brothers exchanged glances. Their grandmother had been increasingly frail, but her mind remained sharp. Whatever was in that letter had been carefully considered. Pemberton handed the envelope to William and quietly left the room. The heavy door clicked shut, leaving the brothers in silence. The envelope bore the royal seal in deep red wax, and their names were written in their grandmother's distinctive handwriting. William broke the seal carefully. Inside was several pages of cream-colored paper, covered in the same elegant script. He began to read aloud, his voice catching slightly on the first words. "My dearest William and Harry, if you are reading this, then the time has come for me to share something that has weighed on my heart for many years. What I am about to ask of you may seem impossible, but I believe it is necessary for the future of our family and the institution we serve." Harry moved closer to read over his brother's shoulder. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if the very walls were holding their breath. "You both know that our family has weathered many storms. We have faced scandals, tragedies, and moments when it seemed the monarchy itself might not survive. But we have always endured because, at our core, we understood that our duty was greater than our personal desires." William paused, glancing at Harry. They both knew this was directed at the recent turmoil that had divided their family. The letter continued. "However, I fear that the current divide between you threatens everything our ancestors built. The public sees your conflict, and it weakens not just our family but the very foundation of the constitutional role we play." Harry's jaw tightened. He had made his choices, and he stood by them. But hearing these words from their grandmother still stung. "Therefore, I must make a request that I know will be difficult for both of you. I am asking you to undertake something together, something that will require you to put aside your differences, at least temporarily." William looked up from the letter. What could she possibly ask that would— "Just keep reading," Harry said quietly. William returned to the letter. Hidden in the royal archives is a document that must never become public. It concerns events from 1936 that could fundamentally alter how the world views our family's legitimacy. I have guarded this secret my entire reign, as did my father before me. The brothers were now completely absorbed. 1936 was the year of the abdication crisis when Edward VIII gave up the throne. What could be more damaging than what was already known? This document is currently held in a Swiss vault, placed there by my father for safekeeping during the war. The only way to access it requires 2 keys, which I have had separated. One is hidden in Balmoral, in a place only I know. The other is in Sandringham, likewise concealed. William's hands trembled slightly as he turned to the next page. "My request is this. You must retrieve both keys together. You cannot do this separately or send others in your place. The journey must be undertaken by both of you, side by side. Once you have the keys, you must travel to Switzerland together and retrieve the document." Harry ran his hand through his hair, a gesture from childhood when he was overwhelmed. "She's forcing us to work together." "There's more," William said, continuing to read. "Once you have the document, you must read it together and decide together what to do with it. Destroy it, and the secret dies forever. Preserve it, and you bear the burden I have carried. But whatever you decide, you must be unanimous." The letter went on to provide specific details about the locations of the keys, written in a code that only the brothers would understand from childhood games they had played with their grandmother. "I know this seems like manipulation," the letter continued, "and perhaps it is. But sometimes we must be pushed to do what is right. You are brothers. You share blood, history, and a burden that few others can understand. The anger between you is real, but it need not be permanent." William set down the first pages and picked up the final sheet. His voice was softer now. "My darling boys, I have lived a long life. I have seen war and peace, joy and sorrow. But my deepest regret is watching you grow apart. This request is not just about protecting secrets or preserving the monarchy. It is about giving you a reason to remember what you once meant to each other." Harry turned away, but William could see his brother's reflection in the window, and the emotion on his face was unmistakable. "The document I speak of contains information about a legal irregularity in the succession that, if revealed, could call into question the legitimacy of every monarch since 1936, including myself. It is not about personal scandals or hidden relationships. It is about the very legal foundation of our right to rule." Both brothers understood the implications immediately. This wasn't just about family secrets. It was about the constitutional crisis that could unfold if such information became public. "I trust you both to make the right decision, but you must make it together. You have 2 weeks from the reading of this letter. After that, certain legal mechanisms will activate that will make the document's existence known to government officials, and the matter will be taken out of your hands." The final paragraph was more personal. "William, you were born to be king. That is your burden and your destiny. Harry, you were born to be free. That is your gift and your challenge. But you were both born to be brothers. That is your choice and your salvation. Choose each other. Choose family. Choose to heal what has been broken." The letter was signed simply, "Your loving Granny." William carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. The silence in the room was deafening. Neither brother knew what to say. The weight of their grandmother's request hung between them like a physical presence. Harry was the first to speak. 2 weeks. She's given us 2 weeks to sort through years of anger and hurt." "It's not about sorting through it all," William replied carefully. "It's about setting it aside long enough to do what needs to be done." "And if we can't? If we can't even agree on what to do with this document?" William met his brother's gaze. "Then the government finds out about it. And who knows what happens? Constitutional crisis, Republican movements gaining strength, the whole institution could crumble." Harry laughed bitterly. "So she's essentially blackmailing us into reconciliation?" "She's giving us a reason to try," William countered. "Something bigger than our personal grievances." The rain outside had intensified, drumming against the ancient windows. Both brothers were lost in thought, processing not just the request, but the revelation that their grandmother had been carrying this burden alone for decades. 3 days had passed since the brothers read their grandmother's letter. William had returned to Kensington Palace, while Harry remained at Windsor, each processing the request in their own way. The deadline loomed, and neither had contacted the other until William's phone buzzed with a simple text. "We need to talk. H." They met at Frogmore House, a neutral location that held memories of happier times. Harry was already there when William arrived, standing by the fireplace in the drawing room. The tension was immediately palpable. "So," Harry began without preamble, "are we doing this?" William removed his coat slowly, buying time. "Do we have a choice? You read the same letter I did. If we don't act, this becomes a governmental matter." "There's always a choice, Will. We could let it become public. Let the chips fall where they may." William's eyes flashed with anger. "You would risk everything? The stability, the continuity, people's faith in the institution? People's faith in an institution built on a lie?" Harry shot back. "If this document is what Granny suggested, then hasn't the public been deceived for decades?" "We don't even know what's in it yet," William said, trying to remain calm. "All we know is that she thought it was important enough to protect." Harry turned to face the window. "Fine, but if we're doing this, we're doing it my way too. No royal protocols, no staff, no security details following us around. Just two brothers on a road trip. That's impossible. I'm the heir to the throne. I can't just disappear without protection." "Then we've already failed," Harry said simply. "Granny's letter was clear. We do this together, alone. Or do you want to explain to the protection officers why we're hunting for hidden keys in the Queen's private residences?" William knew his brother was right. This had to be kept absolutely secret. "Fine, but we'll need a cover story." "Already thought of that. We're inspecting the estates for renovation needs. Boring enough that no one will ask questions." Despite everything, William felt a flicker of admiration for his brother's planning. Harry had always been good at thinking outside the conventional royal box. They decided to start with Balmoral, the Scottish estate where their grandmother had spent her summers. The journey would take them 8 hours by car, time they would be forced to spend together in close quarters. The next morning, they met at dawn. Harry had secured an unremarkable Range Rover, and William arrived dressed in civilian clothes that made him look surprisingly ordinary. For a moment, they stood awkwardly by the vehicle, each waiting for the other to take the driver's seat. "Your car, you drive," William said finally. The first hour passed in uncomfortable silence. The London traffic gradually gave way to motorways, and the city disappeared behind them. It was Harry who finally broke the quiet. "Remember the last time we drove to Scotland together?" William's grip on the passenger handle loosened slightly. "Your 18th birthday? We convinced Papa to let us drive ourselves. And we got completely lost because you insisted you knew a shortcut." "That was you," William protested, but there was a hint of warmth in his voice. "I wanted to stay on the main road." "No, you wanted to stop at every historical marker along the way. Harry, did you know this is where the Battle of Whatever happened?" Despite himself, William smiled. "It was culturally enriching. It was boring as hell, and you know it." The ice began to crack just slightly. They drove on, occasionally sharing memories of other trips, other moments before everything became complicated. But whenever the conversation veered toward recent years, one or both would fall silent. As they crossed into Scotland, the landscape changed dramatically. Rolling hills gave way to dramatic peaks, and the sky seemed to expand infinitely above them. They stopped for fuel in a small town where nobody gave them a second glance. "Granny's code," William said as they returned to the car. "I've been thinking about it. Where the stag fell and the tears were real. That has to be the hunting lodge," Harry finished, "where great-grandfather died. She cried for the stag, but really for him." It was one of their grandmother's stories, told during long summer evenings at Balmoral. As children, they had been fascinated by the tale of the Queen Mother's tears over a hunting accident that had preceded King George II's death by just days. They reached Balmoral as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the estate. The castle stood majestically against the Highland backdrop, but both brothers were focused on the smaller hunting lodge 3 miles into the woods. Walking side by side through the familiar paths, they fell into an old rhythm. Without discussing it, Harry took point while William watched their flanks, a habit from childhood games of soldiers in these very woods. The lodge was exactly as they remembered it, maintained but rarely used. Inside, dust motes danced in the fading light. According to their grandmother's coded instructions, they needed to find where the heart meets the hand. "The painting," William said suddenly, moving toward a portrait of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. In it, Albert's hand was placed over his heart in a romantic gesture. Working together, they carefully removed the painting. Behind it, set into the wood paneling, was a small safe with an old-fashioned lock. The combination was another childhood memory, the date of their last perfect summer together before their mother died. Harry worked the lock while William held a torch. When it opened, inside was a small velvet box containing an ornate key and another envelope. William reached for the envelope, but Harry's hand shot out to stop him. "Together," he said quietly. "We read it together." They opened it side by side. This letter was shorter, written in the same elegant hand. "My dear boys, if you are reading this, you have taken the first step together. The second key awaits at Sandringham, but first you must understand something. The document you seek relates to the legal validity of the 1936 Abdication Act. There are questions about whether proper procedures were followed, whether Parliament had the authority it claimed, and whether the line of succession was legally altered or simply assumed to be altered. This is not about personal failings or hidden scandals. This is about constitutional law and the foundation of legitimate rule. Your great-grandfather knew this, as did your grandfather. Each chose to preserve the secret rather than risk the chaos of revelation. The second key is hidden where your mother taught you both to dance. You know the place. But be warned, retrieving it will require you to confront not just the past, but each other. Remember, you are not just brothers. You are the guardians of a 1,000-year-old institution. But more than that, you are the sons of a woman who believed love could conquer any divide. Prove her right." Harry folded the letter carefully and placed it in his pocket alongside the first one. William secured the key in a small case he had brought. "Sandringham," Harry said. "That's another 5-hour drive." "We could stay here tonight," William suggested. "Drive fresh in the morning." Harry shook his head. "The clock's ticking. Besides, if we stop now—" He didn't finish, but William understood. If they stopped now, they might lose whatever fragile momentum had built between them. They made their way back to the car as darkness fell. The Scottish Highlands were eerily beautiful at night, and both brothers found themselves remembering camping trips with their father, nights spent learning about the stars and telling ghost stories. "Do you ever think about what life would have been like?" Harry asked suddenly as they drove through the darkness. "If none of it had happened? If we were just normal brothers?" William was quiet for a long moment. "We were never going to be normal brothers, Harry. Even without everything that happened, we were always going to be the heir and the spare." "I hate that term," Harry said with sudden vehemence. "I know. I hate it too." This admission seemed to surprise Harry. He glanced at his brother's profile in the dim light from the dashboard. "You do?" "Of course I do. You think I enjoyed watching you be diminished to a backup plan? You're my brother, not a spare anything." The confession hung between them, more honest than anything they had said to each other in years. They drove through the night, taking turns at the wheel. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, they stopped at a 24-hour service station. As they stood side by side in the harsh, fluorescent lighting, buying coffee and sandwiches, William caught a glimpse of their reflection in a window. They looked tired, older than their years, but for the first time in a long time, they looked like brothers. Harry must have noticed it too because he said quietly, "She knew what she was doing, didn't she, Granny?" She always did, William replied. By dawn, they were approaching Sandringham. The Norfolk estate held different memories than Balmoral. Christmas gatherings, formal occasions, but also private moments, including the ballroom where their mother had indeed taught them both to dance, preparing them for a life of formal occasions. The estate was quiet in the early morning light. They entered through a side entrance William knew would be unlocked, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The ballroom was vast and silent, dust covers over the furniture, chandeliers dark, but both brothers walked without hesitation to the far corner, where a small musician's alcove held an ancient piano. "She taught us the waltz right here," Harry said softly. "You kept stepping on her feet." "That was you," William protested, but his heart wasn't in it. They both knew the truth. They had both been terrible dancers until their mother's patient instruction. Under the piano bench, hidden beneath a false bottom their mother had shown them years ago, was another safe. This one required not a combination but a key, one their mother had given them to share, which they had hidden here after her death, unable to decide who should keep it. Harry produced the key from his wallet. William stared at him in surprise. "You kept it? All these years?" "Didn't you?" Harry asked. And William wordlessly pulled out his own matching key. They had both carried their shared key all these years, neither knowing the other had done the same. The two keys fit together perfectly, forming a single master key that opened the safe. Inside was the second ornate key and a small leather journal. William reached for it, but this time both brothers grasped it simultaneously. "Together," they said in unison, a ghost of a smile passing between them. The journal was their mother's, filled with her thoughts during her final years. They sat on the covered furniture, reading passages that made them both laugh and cry. She had written about them, about her hopes for their future, about her fears that the institution would divide them. "She knew," Harry whispered. "Even then, she knew what might happen to us." One entry, near the end, was marked with their grandmother's seal. "The Queen has told me about the document. She says it is both a blessing and a curse, proof that even kings and queens are human, that laws can be bent in times of crisis, that legitimacy sometimes rests on collective agreement rather than perfect legal procedure. She trusts that one day William and Harry together will know what to do with this knowledge. I pray she is right." William closed the journal carefully. "Switzerland. We need to go to Switzerland." "Now?" Harry asked, though he was already standing. "We have 8 days left. But Harry—" William paused, choosing his words carefully. "Once we read this document, we can't unread it. Are you prepared for that?" Harry met his brother's eyes. "The question is, are we prepared to face it together?" They drove to a small private airfield, William knew, where they could charter a plane without attracting attention. The flight to Geneva took just over 2 hours, time they spent in contemplative silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what they might discover. The Swiss bank was a model of discretion, hidden behind an unremarkable facade in Geneva's financial district. The manager, a woman who looked like she had been handling secrets since birth, examined their keys and identification with meticulous care. "Deposit box 1936, she said finally. "This way, please." She led them deep into the bank's vaults, through multiple security doors, to a private viewing room. The box she placed before them was old, marked with the royal seal, and requiring both keys to open. "I'll leave you gentlemen to your business," she said, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The brothers looked at each other, then at the box. "On 3, Harry suggested, and William nodded. They inserted their keys and turned them together. The lock mechanism was smooth despite its age, and the lid opened to reveal a single manila envelope marked "Confidential, Succession Crisis, 1936. Inside were several documents, legal opinions, parliamentary records, and correspondence between government officials. As they read, the full picture emerged. The Abdication Act of 1936 rushed through Parliament in mere days to allow Edward VIII to abdicate and marry Wallis Simpson had serious procedural flaws. Required consultations with Commonwealth realms had been abbreviated or skipped entirely. Constitutional experts at the time had raised concerns about whether Parliament had the authority to alter the succession without full Commonwealth consent. More damning was a legal opinion suggesting that Edward VIII's abdication might not have been legally valid under existing law, potentially meaning that the entire line of succession since 1936 was built on a constitutional irregularity. "My God," William breathed, "if this got out—" "Every anti-monarchist in the Commonwealth would have a field day," Harry finished. "Legal challenges, constitutional crises in multiple countries." They found a final document at the bottom of the stack, a letter from King George VI to his daughter, the future queen. "My dearest Lilibet, I leave you this burden as my father left it to me. The lawyers tell me that possession is 9/10 of the law, and we possess the throne through the will of the people, if not through perfect legal procedure. You must decide whether to preserve this secret or reveal it. I trust your wisdom, as I now trust you with the crown itself." The brothers sat back, absorbing the magnitude of what they had discovered. Their grandmother had carried this knowledge for over 70 years, knowing that the very foundation of her reign could be questioned. "So what do we do?" Harry asked finally. William was quiet for a long moment. "What would Granny want us to do?" "She left it to us to decide, together." "The safe thing would be to destroy it," William said carefully. "Protect the institution, maintain stability. The honest thing would be to reveal it," Harry countered. "Let people decide if they want a monarchy built on questionable legal grounds. And destroy everything? Create chaos? Hurt the Commonwealth realms that still recognize the crown?" Harry stood and paced the small room. "Or give them the choice to make informed decisions about their future." "You've already made your choice about the institution," William said, an edge creeping into his voice. "Is this just another way to bring it down?" Harry spun around. "Is that what you think? That I want to destroy everything?" "Don't you? You left, Harry. You walked away from all of it." "I walked away from a life that was killing me." Harry's voice cracked. "I didn't walk away from you. Didn't you?" William stood now, too, years of hurt spilling out. Every interview, every revelation, every public accusation. How was that not walking away from me? "I was trying to explain." "You were trying to hurt us the way you felt hurt. And it worked. Congratulations." They stood facing each other, breathing hard, all the pain and anger of recent years filling the space between them. Then Harry did something unexpected. He sat down, put his head in his hands, and began to cry. Not the careful, controlled tears of public appearances, but genuine, exhausted sobs. "I miss her," he said brokenly. "I miss Mum. I miss Granny. I miss you. I miss my brother." William stood frozen for a moment, then slowly sat beside Harry. "I miss you too," he admitted quietly. "Every day, even when I'm angry, especially when I'm angry." They sat in silence as Harry's tears subsided. Finally, William spoke again. "She knew, didn't she? Granny, she knew we'd end up here, not just geographically, but emotionally, having to choose between protecting the institution and embracing truth. It's not that simple, though, is it?" Harry wiped his eyes. "The institution isn't just some abstract thing. It's people's jobs, their sense of identity, their connection to history, and the truth is that legitimacy comes from more than perfect paperwork." William looked at his brother in surprise. "That's very philosophical of you." "I've had a lot of time to think," Harry said with a rueful smile. about what really matters, about what's worth fighting for and what's worth letting go. They turned back to the documents spread before them. "What if," William said slowly, "we're thinking about this wrong? What if the choice isn't between destroying or preserving?" Harry looked up, interested. "What do you mean?" "What if we reframe it? Keep the documents but create a new narrative around them. Show that the monarchy survived not because of perfect legal procedures, but because of the will of the people, that its legitimacy comes from service and consent, not from ancient laws and ceremonies. Transparency without chaos," Harry mused. "Reform without revolution. We could work with constitutional experts, historians, government officials, plan a careful revelation that strengthens rather than weakens the institution by showing it can face hard truths. That would take us working together. Really together. Not just for a few days, but for months, maybe years." William met his brother's eyes. "I know." The weight of what he was suggesting hung between them. This wouldn't just be about managing a crisis. It would be about rebuilding their relationship, finding a way forward that honored both of their truths. Harry stood and walked to the small window that looked out over Geneva's orderly streets. "You know what the hardest part is? I can see her, Granny, sitting in her study writing that letter, knowing exactly what she was doing, not just protecting a secret, but creating an opportunity. An opportunity for what? For us to choose each other, to choose to be brothers again, to realize that some things are more important than being right or wrong, than winning or losing." William joined him at the window. "She always did play the long game." "Three-dimensional chess while the rest of us were playing checkers," Harry agreed. They stood shoulder to shoulder, looking out at the Swiss city where their family's secret had been hidden for decades. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. "So what do we do?" William asked again. But this time the question carried different weight. Harry turned to face his brother fully. "We do what Mum would have wanted, what Granny hoped for. We choose love over fear, truth over comfort, and family over everything else." William extended his hand, and Harry took it. But then William pulled him into an embrace, the first real hug they had shared in years. Both men held on tight, years of pain and anger dissolving into something simpler and more profound. When they finally separated, both had tears in their eyes. "We'll need a plan," William said, his voice rough with emotion. "We'll need more than that," Harry replied. "We'll need to rebuild trust, not just between us but with the public. Show them that the monarchy can evolve, can face its past honestly. It won't be easy. There will be those who want to use this to destroy everything. And there will be those who see it as proof that the institution can adapt and survive, that it's about more than bloodlines and legal technicalities." They carefully returned the documents to their envelope, both holding it as they locked it back in the deposit box. They would return for it when they were ready, when they had built the framework for revelation and reform. As they left the bank, walking side by side through Geneva's evening streets, Harry suddenly laughed. "What?" William asked. "I was just thinking. Granny sent us on a treasure hunt, and the treasure wasn't gold or jewels. It was this, us, finding our way back to each other." William smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Trust her to turn a constitutional crisis into a therapy session." "The most expensive therapy session in history," Harry agreed. They found a small restaurant where no one recognized them, and over a simple meal they began to plan. Not just how to handle the documents, but how to move forward as brothers. There would be difficult conversations ahead, apologies to be made, trust to be rebuilt. But for the first time in years, both believed it was possible. As they flew back to England the next morning, Harry pulled out their grandmother's original letter and read the final paragraph again. "Choose each other. Choose family. Choose to heal what has been broken." "She was right about one thing," William said. We always did have a choice. We just needed a reason to make it. And now we have several million reasons, Harry replied, thinking of all the people across the Commonwealth who deserved honesty from their institutions. But only one that really matters, William said quietly. Harry looked at his brother questioningly. We're family. That's the only reason that's ever really mattered. The plane descended through morning clouds toward an England that would never know how close it had come to crisis. Two brothers had left separately, carrying years of pain and anger. They returned together, carrying a secret that would reshape the monarchy, but more importantly, carrying the renewed bond of brotherhood. Their grandmother's final request had done exactly what she intended. It had forced them to remember what they meant to each other, to choose reconciliation over righteousness, love over law. The secret in the Swiss vault would eventually be revealed, carefully and thoughtfully, strengthening rather than destroying the institution by proving it could face hard truths. But the real revelation had already occurred in a small room in Geneva, when two brothers chose each other over everything else that divided them. The constitutional crisis had been averted not by destroying evidence or maintaining secrets, but by the simple, profound act of family choosing family. The Queen's final gambit had worked. In death, she had accomplished what she could not in life, bringing her grandsons back together, reminding them that some bonds are stronger than any crown, any title, any institution. As they landed in England, William turned to Harry. Ready for what comes next? Harry smiled, the first genuine smile his brother had seen in years. As long as we're doing it together. And they were.